All right, Aspire Leaders, I have the amazing opportunity to speak with a phenomenal leader who's been a teacher, school and district administrator, educational consultant, and now she's got author on that list. I'm so excited to have Meghan Lawson on with me as we're going to be talking a lot of different topics on leadership, but then also about her brand new book, like I said, Legacy of Learning, Teaching for Lasting Impact. And Meghan, first off, congratulations on the brand new book.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. And what an honor it is to join you here. I know I've personally benefited from listening to you and some of the incredible, inspiring leaders that you've had on this podcast. So thank you so much for having me today.
Well, those are kind words, Meghan. I don't take that lightly. So thank you so much. And so we had talked previously about our roles and just the busyness. I know for you launching a brand new book, I bet 1,000 people are trying to get after you and asking for interviews and whatnot. And I even saw you have a book study. And for myself, through the years as an educational leader, I have always tried my best to sustain energy throughout the day. And I've had a really difficult time. So if anyone knows, I am go, go, go all the time. I rarely stop to eat. I do eat, but it's usually on the run. And then also I love my coffee, right? So I've had sponsors on this podcast that are coffee companies, but I'm always looking for something a little bit different. And one of those things that I've tried before was an energy drink, which made me completely jittery. And then it was like, okay, I'm going to have 3 cups of coffee. And then that was too much because then I was staying up too late at night and I was also feeling gross, like just disgusting. And then I also was having too much sugar because I was like throwing down candy and all this nastiness that was in the staff lounge and in the school front office. And the sugar made me crash in the afternoon. So I was like, okay, I got to find a way to get my energy up. So Meghan, is this something that you struggle with?
I do. It's funny that you mentioned that about different things making you feel funny. I am somebody who enjoys working out. And I know for me, if I take a pre-workout, it makes me feel like my skin is actually crawling. So
Yep.
I think it's important to find something that is healthy and also gives you the boost you need for sure.
Well, I'm glad you said healthy because I know for myself, I'm not getting any younger. And so I'm trying to find some healthy choices. And so what I've landed on is this brand new drink. It's very small. It's called Magic Mind. And I've been throwing this down. And so what I've been doing is for my routine is pairing it with my coffee. So yes, I got to have my coffee in the morning. That's not going away. But I do need that boost to get me that energy in the afternoons. And so this kind of extends that. And I've found this to be a wonderful routine. So I want to make sure that my audience is finding that energy. I know my administrators are running around like crazy. So, if you're looking for something that's got a great supply of natural ingredients and you're also looking for that sustained energy boost, I've got some for you. So, this little Magic Mind, I've got a partnership here with this company. So, if you go to magicmind.com/aspire, and I'm going to throw this up if you're watching on YouTube, there's a link there, and use the code aspire20, you can get up to 56% off your subscription, and that's for the next 10 days. So I want to make sure that my audience takes advantage of this because it's very important to be healthy. It's also important to have that energy boost so that you can be the best for your students, for your parents, and for your community. And Meghan, so excited to have this conversation with you
Thank you
today.
so much
So
for having me.
all right, let's talk about your leadership journey because I said it at the very beginning, it's vast and you've done, it seems like everything under the sun as far as education. So would you just mind sharing real quick about your educational leadership journey?
Sure. I've never been someone who has been focused on titles or climbing some kind of proverbial ladder. I'm someone who just wants to do work I believe in with people I enjoy. And I really am a lover of learning who believes in the goodness of people. And that has led me into some incredible spaces with some really talented, mission driven, incredible human beings in our profession. So for me, I started my career as a high school English teacher. And my journey into education is actually not an inspiring one. I've heard people talk about, my parents were teachers and I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. Or I played school growing up, or I got into teaching because I had hard experiences myself and I wanted to get in there and change what school could be. I actually was a classically trained dancer. So I wanted to move to New York, dance on Broadway, live out of a backpack, just live that dream. And I was raised by a very practical single mom who said, that's wonderful. But that's, can be very challenging to do. And you need a backup plan and you don't need a college degree to do that. So begrudgingly, I chose a major and, started my career as an uninspiring start to my career. But I've learned that experience is needed in order to develop passion. And so in my case, the more experience that I've had in this profession and opportunities I've had to learn from so many incredible educators and students in my classroom, the more my passion has grown for our profession. So I started in the high school English classroom as a ninth grade English teacher. And I will be the first to admit that I chose high school because I thought that people would think I was smart and impressive by teaching high school. And I learned very quickly how hard it is to be a great teacher, no matter what level you're teaching at, but also how important it is. I think that's what's kept me coming back. So after about 4 years of teaching high school, I realized that maybe a different grade level would be a good fit for me, a different level altogether. And I'm 7th through 12 certified, landed in the 7th grade English classroom. And that's where I learned in the middle school how to be a good teacher and how to manage all kinds of things in the classroom and kids at a variety of developmental levels. And I learned how to get over myself a little bit and instead realize, that behavior was communication and feedback for me, and how to make things fun and interesting for all of us. And so I had a high school or a principal at the time in the middle school who said, have you ever thought about becoming a principal? And I remembered saying to her at the time, I believe my exact words were, why would anyone want to do your job? Your job looks terrible. And she said, no, if you really, there are many ways to make an impact outside of your classroom, not just through administration, but one way is, through school administration. So became an assistant principal at a middle school, and left to go to a district office role for a while. Then I was a consultant at an educational service center. And at that time, there was a school that needed a principal, and they contracted me out to be an elementary principal for the year. And that was pretty cool. It was the year COVID hit. Wow, what a wild ride that was. And then after that, I fell in love with the district I was in for that role. And they had this role open up, which I'm currently serving in as the director of secondary teaching and learning at a school district here in the Cincinnati, Ohio area.
All right. So, Megan, I love having guests on with like a variety of different titles to the name and leadership. And that's one that I know looks different in each different district and in different states. So, for your role right now, what does that entail? Like, what are you over and what are you working with?
That's a great question. I think there are a lot of people who are like, what do you do every day? Right? Because
Yeah.
those words, teaching and learning, could be a million different things.
Right.
So one area that I lead in is in the area of special education.
Yep.
The other area, when you think about, curriculum, instruction, assessment, I work very closely with principals and instructional coaches in building leadership teams and a variety of capacities, including looking at our curriculum, but also, professional learning for teachers. And something that's really important to me, I know I've used a lot of big words, about titles and big, like, oh, wow, that sounds like big work or something. But at the end of the day, if nothing else, there's two things that I hope people would know would be true about me. One is I think the word we is really important in this work, and I get to work on some incredible teams, and there's nothing that I ever achieved that I didn't do with a group of people. And we all share pride in our work together, but also I think teachers create what they experience, as Katie Martin would say in her book, Learner-Centered Innovation. And I hope that by taking really great care of teachers and their learning, they're more equipped then to take great care of students and their learning.
Well, let's talk about that because, being in a district role, obviously you are over a lot of different folks in the district. And so, you were talking about that team aspect. So how do you get that instilled as far as like, we're here for the collective whole versus our own individual achievements?
I love that question. Well, I don't know if you're familiar with some of Sean Akers' work. So happiness researcher out of Harvard. And in some of his books, like Big Potential as an example, he talks a lot about what it looks like to achieve together versus as an individual. And I think a lot of our work, historically, we celebrate individual achievement, right? Like when we were growing up, a lot of us were really proud for the individual, grades and accolades, right? And awards and all of is wonderful. But I think when we work together and we amplify the strengths that people bring into our school ecosystems and leverage each other's strengths for the collective good, we can go further together. And he talks a lot about what he calls the super bounce of positivity, where if you're on a trampoline and you're jumping on that trampoline by yourself, you can go pretty high and pretty far. If someone else is jumping with you and you time it right, you can actually catapult yourself to new heights. And so I've been really interested in what that looks like, in the school community. And so I think for me, I think I have a lot of fun leveraging meetings and other things that people typically find to be a really big drag. A lot of people don't look forward to the meetings that they have, but meetings can be a great way to amplify our sense of togetherness and community, while also moving important hard work forward, because we are in it together, figuring it out and making real things happen for kids. And so I'm just really passionate about leading meetings that are fun and get the work done.
I was smiling because I'm visualizing that trampoline. I don't know if you've seen on social media where there's like 4 people on the trampoline and they time it and the person like launches like 3 stories up, and it makes me so nervous and they make it look so easy. But I love that because it's true. It's the team concept, and so many times in society, it's trying to pull a single person out and give them the accolades and talk about, even in a team sport or something like that they're the reason that a team won or whatnot. And it's true. It takes everybody to participate and have that rhythm, like you said, with the trampoline, to make sure that we're getting to new heights. So love that idea. Now, you had talked about positivity and kind of happiness with your reference to several different resources. So I want to talk a little bit about the positivity component. So as far as the learning process goes, is there anything that you're instilling to try to make that like a more positive place for your students, for your teachers, and for your staff?
Yeah, I'm sure I'm going to sound like a Sean Aker spokesperson. So inspired by his work, he would say that your brain on positive is 31% more productive than it is
Wow.
at negative, neutral, or stress. So if you think about 31%, I mean, that's very significant. And yet of all the data that we have in our schools, measuring happiness levels does not tend to be the kind of data that we have at the table,
No.
because often what is most essential is hardest to measure. And
Yep.
so a few ways that we really try to amplify that sense of positivity and togetherness in school. One being every Wednesday in our school district, our district building administrators and coaches, and now some teachers have come along, and even students on some weeks. We go into what we call instructional rounds. I think, though, a lot of people hear instructional rounds are learning walks, and they find that super terrifying because they've had some kind of traumatic experience, or they got some kind of feedback that felt very disconnected with what they were trying to do, or this person has no idea, what they should be looking for, what was really happening here. But in our case, it's really more like a celebration of great work. So we lean on Mike Rutherford's 30-second feedback protocol. And what we do is, first thing we make sure we do is there's only 2 of us going in a classroom at a time, so that we're not like fish bowling this entire room and overwhelming the students and teachers in that classroom. But what he encourages you to do is you go into the classroom and you don't try to tiptoe in there, like you're already a disruption. So go ahead and lean into it, wave, hi, good to see you, great. And then you keep your eye out for just things that look interesting to you. And then when you find something that you want to know more about, you try to move a little closer to it. So like if you see a teacher at a kidney table working with a small group of students, you might move yourself closer to that table just so you can hear more clearly what the students are saying, what the teacher's saying, the different moves that they're using in that lesson with the students. And then after spending some nice time with that, you fill out a Post-it note. And it's very simple. The formula is this. And this is included actually in my book. So there's a cushion like, hi, thanks so much for having us. And then there's sort of cause and effect, right? Or teaching and then learning. So when you ask students to turn and talk, the energy in the room went up and learning was more accessible. Nice move. You just kind of bring it to a close at the end. We have so many teachers who save those Post-it notes. I mean, it's such a small move, but they know that when we're in their classroom, that they're going to get some very specific intentional feedback about an actual move that they made that was impactful for students. And I think teaching while they're with kids all day, teachers can feel really isolated. Often they're the only adult in the room. And so letting them know that we see you, we appreciate you for this very specific thing that's adding value, is one way, just one small move that I think can make a tremendous impact. And I'll say we also have like a little form we fill out when we get into the hallway that we'll use to kind of, and doesn't have any teacher names on it or anything like that, but to help us get a feel for, what kinds of instructional strategies are we seeing a lot? What are we seeing less of? And what does that make us wonder for how we might support teachers with professional learning in the future? But it's amazing how much of an impact a kind word, a Post-it note, just acknowledging how impactful that can be.
All right. So before we dive into your book, because you had mentioned it, and I'm kind of itching to get after that resource and that beautiful text of yours, but I want to know, since you're working with so many teachers, what are some small things that they can do in the classroom that you feel is a giant impact for student learning?
Oh, I love that you asked this. So to start, I think it's going to sound so simple. And for many people, this is just a reminder of something that they already know to be true. But I think it's really important for both adult learners and students to hear their name at school. And I think in the secondary side, a lot of times our teachers have a lot of students in the day, and kids move through a lot of classes with a lot of different teachers. And I know our staff know our students' names and can use them correctly, but I don't know for sure how many of our kids know each other's names in their classes and are using them every day. And so that's one small move, ensuring that, after the first week of school, getting to know you activities as we move into the more rigorous, content work, that we don't forget to continue to build community and ensure that kids are known. And there's what originally got me interested in this. There's a survey from Battelle for Kids, a student experience 21. And one of the questions is, would somebody notice if, do you feel like if somebody would notice if you weren't at school today, kind of a thing. And I think, it's not just about teachers noticing and appreciating students and creating belonging. It's about all of us in our community, whether it's staff to staff or student to student. So that's one thing that I've been thinking about. And along with that goes even just greeting students at the door. I know that is something that we all believe is important, but is really easy to lose. And I certainly don't want someone to miss their restroom break, or those copies that they have to grab really quickly off the copier. But, there's a lot of research that would show that students, their engagement goes up in the classroom when the teacher greets them, kind of spends that short little amount of time with them in the hallway. Time to task goes up by I think 20%, but also discipline can decrease by 9%. I got that, from an Edutopia article that I thought was really compelling. That doesn't require hardly any planning, but it certainly requires daily commitment. Other things, I think the sweet spot for putting students in groups in grades 3 and higher is supposed to be 3. I was somebody who just always put kids in pairs or put them in 4s as a teacher. I don't know why. I guess I just really liked even numbers. I wish I had stumbled upon that sooner. And also just the value of movement in the classroom, and non-permanent vertical surfaces, as you'd hear about in building thinking classrooms for mathematics. Not to be dissuaded by that title, because anybody could learn so much from that book, but allowing kids to talk about the math or about the content while, working on something that feels lower stakes because, you can erase it, or it's just, a piece of poster paper, tends to increase learning. So those are just some examples of moves that I see great teachers making every day, that are small, that don't require a heavy lift on the planning side, but can have a big impact on student achievement.
Yeah, I love those suggestions so much, Megan. Those are wonderful. And I love that you have the data to back that up. And I mean, students and teachers, everyone in the building, they're longing for connection. And so it's important to, like you said, not only have that for the student with the teacher relationship, but then also student to student. So there's ways that we can do that in the classroom to enhance their experience, and that connection, I think, is so beneficial. So love those. All right, let's transition to your wonderful book that just launched, Legacy of Learning, Teaching for Lasting Impact. Megan, I want to know what inspired this idea and who did you write this book for?
Awesome. So I blog every week. That's for me as a learner. That was something that George Couros has encouraged so many educators to do, that he's
Yes.
inspired. And so I just, started writing to make sure that I had created a reflection space for myself and could go back into my thinking and also see my thinking evolve over time as I'm exposed to more stimulus and the smart work of other people. So, and I did that. I've been doing that for over 3 years now, but about a year and a half in, I started to notice themes emerge about what I was writing about. And there was sort of this thread. And it just occurred to me that I wonder if this is a book, because I seem to really care about these things and be talking about them a lot. And so that was really the inspiration for this book. And as far as the people that it's for anybody working in a school. Really, it's for teachers. It might be for people leading teachers, but I think the themes, when I talk about that thread or the themes that come up, I think a lot of us are feeling overworked, overstimulated. We found a way to overcomplicate a lot of the aspects of what this profession is. And I don't think it needs to be complicated to be impactful. And so this book is about, making that meaningful impact that we all desire, while also ensuring that the work is manageable and fun. There's so many people who will say, man, these jobs used to be fun. And they can be fun, and we can make an impact, and we can do all of that without losing ourselves in the process. And I tried to write an honest book, not a heroic one. It's just my own journey. In order to write a book that I thought might make any kind of difference to even just one person reading it, I had to be real about it. And so it required some vulnerability on my part and talking about some of the, it's not like a Britney Spears tell all or anything like that, but it certainly does not make me look like I had it all together, because I didn't, and I still don't.
You're not dancing with knives, Megan,
Nope.
on social media? Okay. Well, let's talk about that transparency, because even before we push record, you had talked about, like, I'm not a perfect educator, I've made mistakes. So is there something that you wrote in the book that you felt like, what, I struggle with this, I know a lot of teachers or educators are going to, if they're young or inexperienced or maybe just in their journey, and I want to make sure that they don't make the same mistake I did? Is there something that you could pull from that book and just share with my audience real quick?
No, I'd love to. There's a lot of things that I wrote
Oh,
about.
I figured there was.
Spirit. Yeah, you nailed that. So even perfectionism itself, there's a
Sure.
whole chapter and another chapter that's adjacent to that one that is about people pleasing or seeking the approval of others, or perfectionism. And my own working definition of perfectionism, and I don't claim to be some kind of expert. I'm sure there's no thesaurus that could support, the words and definition that I'm going to provide. But for me, um, perfectionism is not just about being obsessed with getting it right. My version of perfectionism is sometimes having unrealistic expectations for both myself and the timeline in which I can achieve something, or the amount of things I can achieve well at one time. And so, like I said earlier, I was a classically trained dancer. So being in the ballet world, everything is about placement and everything being perfect, and every little detail needing to be exactly right. And I carried some of those habits with me into our profession. And I think for a lot of teachers who did really well in school, as an example, got good grades and turned everything in on time and, received that praise from their teachers, we sort of came in with these expectations that, like, that was how teaching was going to go, and that we're going to just know what to do at the right time and make the right decision. Um, and there's no room really then for play and creativity and the messy part of learning if we expect that we're going to do something, we're going to execute perfectly on the first try. And the truth is, our kids don't need people, shiny perfect people who execute things perfectly on the first try. They need deeply human people who are going to model what it looks like to be a learner and to love yourself through the process of growing and evolving.
Yeah, that's a hard lesson for teachers in general, myself included. And yeah, as a leader, I was always trying to tell my teachers, like, it's okay. Like, if you make a mistake, just own it in front of the kids. And that's modeling appropriate adult behavior. Like, even just that small thing means a lot to kids, because, they're not going to put you on a pedestal and think you're perfect. It's not possible. So I love that. Yeah, like you said, learning is messy. So lean into that a little bit. All
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I was humbled and with a 7th grade student to give you a story of the kind of stories that you might see in my book. And I noticed that I was teaching a lesson, and that it's never a good sign if you see a middle schooler keeping tally marks on something, right? It's like, what are they keeping track of right now? Eek. And I moved
I've
myself a
seen this
little
happen
closer.
before.
Have you? I know. It's like my heart dropped. Uh-oh. What's happening in this room that I am not tuned into right now?
Yeah.
And it was me. He was keeping track of the number of vocal fillers I was using when I was talking to the class, the number of likes and the number of ums. So much so that he differentiated the two. So we had the tally marks for the number of likes, the tally marks for the number of ums. And I'm embarrassed to tell you that there were a lot of tally marks. It was great feedback. It just did not make its way to me in a way that felt good. So I asked him, if he'd hang back, because I wanted to ask him a couple questions at the end of class so the class clears out. And I said, I noticed that we were keeping some tally marks, and of course his face is getting all red. And I said, no, this is really great feedback for me. I had no idea that I was using that many vocal fillers. I said, the thing that I was hoping we can work on together is how that feedback is given to me. And because the way it came about, it just was really hard for me to receive it, just sort of noticing you kind of chuckling to yourself while I'm trying to teach my lesson. So, I mean, those are just some examples of teaching has this beautiful way of humbling you and reminding you of how, not perfect you are. And even in the way I handled that situation, I tell the story in the book that I had this great moment with him. And at the end of it, I said, I was trying to lighten it up because his face was very red. I was, the next time that I'm grading papers in this class, I didn't realize that perfection was the standard. Like, I'm going to remember that, the next time that I grade your paper. Then I laughed and I said, I'm just kidding, kind of a thing. But like, that sounded punitive. It sounded like a little bit like I was going to be like retaliating. And I think sometimes, we hide behind sarcasm a little bit, and it can tear down relationships. And I think that's an example of a story that I just go ahead and name for people, like both that I struggled with vocal fillers. I had a kid who was keeping track of it in class, but also I didn't handle perfectly that situation. And I learned to handle it differently in different contexts in the future. So,
Sure. Well, if it makes you feel any better, Megan, my first year teaching, I had the exact same thing happen, but it was with using the filler okay. So I was nervous, in front of my students, and someone took the tally marks, but then he decided to announce it into the class as to how many times it said okay. And I just said, thanks, buddy. I'll make sure I do better next time. And I kind of left it at that. And I think I turned red as he was announcing it to the class because I was a little embarrassed by that. But yeah, I mean,
what a
middle
great
school
reaction
students.
you had,
Right.
like you acknowledged it. And you said, I'm going to work on it. I think that was
Yeah.
wonderful. You didn't say, I'm going to remember that the next time I grade your paper.
I'm going to get you, buddy. You just wait.
Right.
After school, outside. No, I mean, especially I worked in middle school for forever. And so, whatever comes in their mind, they're going to say it. So you just got to take it in a grain of salt. So,
Absolutely.
All right, Megan, I just have enjoyed this conversation so much. I don't want it to end, but I do want to ask you something that I ask all my guests. So for our aspiring and current leaders, if there's something they can do tomorrow, next week to enhance their leadership journey, what would you advise them to do?
I would advise them to put on their sneakers and roll up their sleeves and get in the work with people. For me, I don't know how to lead differently, especially for those of you who might be listening who are in district office roles. It is really easy to make assumptions about what's needed in schools and what's happening in schools unless you put yourself in the work alongside people. So I would say just get in there and listen and try to be of some kind of support.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, it's hard to hard to assess what's going on if you're not there personally and seeing it firsthand. So great advice, Megan. I want my folks to, one, pick up your book as quickly as possible, but also I want them to connect with you either on your website or on social media. So will you just share how they may get in contact with you?
Absolutely. So I love connecting with and learning from educators. So I hope that people reach out to me and that we can follow each other. So my best learning comes from people in the classroom and people leading schools. So you can follow me. You can follow me at meghanlawson.com, where I blog weekly. You can, sorry, my cat would like to be part of the podcast.
It's all good.
You can follow me on Instagram at Meghan Lawson blog. Or you can follow me on X, Meghan_Lawson. And my first name, my mom wanted to make it complicated for people. It does have an H in it, a silent H. So it's Meghan.
It's unique. All right, folks, if you want to see not only Meghan Lawson in person, but her furry friend, you can definitely check us out on YouTube, on the new YouTube channel, Joshua Stamper, and then also, of course, on the Teach Better Team YouTube page. We'll have the video up there. And then I know Megan was talking about the spelling of her name. So if you want all those links as far as how to connect with Megan, maybe click on the link to get her brand new book. You can go to joshstamper.com in the show notes too. If you're on a podcast platform, it'll be there. And like I said before, if you need a burst of energy, Magic Minds for you, so you can go to joshstamper.com. I'll have the link there with the code Aspire20. If you forget, how to access that, it'll be all that information will be there for you, and every way you can to get connected with the wonderful Meghan Lawson. And I just want to thank you so much. I know you had said that you've been a listener of the podcast, and that just means the world to me, especially coming from someone who is making such an impact, not only in the district, but all over this country. And I am just so proud and amazed by your work in this brand new book. So thank you so much for being a guest on Aspire to Lead.
I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me.